I'm Trevor Mitchell, 32 years old, and I've always been the family disappointment. While my brother Ethan collected accolades and parental approval, I quietly built my tech empire far from their judgmental eyes. At our annual Thanksgiving dinner, my mother delivered her usual comparison. Ethan just bought a beautiful house. When will you finally settle down? Little did she know I'd been waiting years for this perfect moment to reveal my truth. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see my family's faces when they learned what I'd been hiding all along. Growing up in our modest colonial home in the suburbs of Boston, comparison was as much a staple as Sunday pot roast. Our house on Maple Street had 4 bedrooms, fading blue siding, and an invisible scoreboard that constantly tracked the Mitchell brothers' achievements. From the beginning, the tally heavily favored my older brother Ethan. Our childhood bedroom walls told the complete story. Ethan's side shelves buckling under the weight of golden trophies, football, baseball, debate team. Honor roll certificates plastered like wallpaper. My side, a few participation ribbons and a computer I'd saved 18 months to buy. Look at your brother's report card, Mom would announce at dinner, waving Ethan's straight, as like a victory flag. Now that's applying yourself. My report card, with its mix of A's in computer science and C's in subjects that couldn't hold my interest, would receive a disappointed sigh. Dad wasn't much better. A practical accountant who believed in traditional career paths, he'd beam with pride when Ethan joined the high school football team as quarterback. "That's my boy," he'd shout from the bleachers. When I won the state coding competition in 11th grade, he patted my shoulder awkwardly. "That's nice, son, but computers won't build character like real sports." Even our extended family reinforced the narrative. At 13, during our annual 4th of July barbecue, I overheard Aunt Margaret asking Mom, "What's wrong with Trevor? He's always off by himself." Mom's response, "He just doesn't apply himself like Ethan," burned into my memory like a brand. High school only widened the gap. Ethan, prom king, student body president, athletic scholarship offers. Me, the quiet kid building websites in the computer lab during lunch. My parents called it hiding. I called it building my future. "When are you going to join some real activities?" Mom would ask. "Colleges don't give scholarships for playing video games." I wasn't playing games. I was teaching myself Python and JavaScript languages that would eventually make me millions. But explaining programming to my English teacher mother was like describing colors to someone who'd only seen in black and white. By senior year, Ethan was headed to Boston College on a partial scholarship, following the exact path our parents had mapped out. I got into MIT, which briefly sparked parental pride until I dropped out halfway through sophomore year to pursue my first startup. "You're throwing your life away," Dad thundered during our explosive kitchen confrontation. "No Mitchell has ever quit college. What will people think?" Mom was worse. Her disappointment wasn't loud, it was a soft, persistent drip of concern that eroded my confidence. "I just want what's best for you, Trevor. Look how well Ethan is doing at his internship. They're already talking about hiring him full-time after graduation." Family gatherings became battlegrounds where I defended my unconventional choices against a united front of traditionalism. Thanksgiving was the worst. The entire extended family gathered to witness my public accounting of failures disguised as casual conversation. So Trevor, Uncle Bob, would begin swirling his whiskey, still doing that computer hobby thing, as though building enterprise software was equivalent to collecting stamps. "Ethan just got promoted," Mom would interject before I could answer. Youngest associate in his company's history. Year after year, the pattern repeated. Ethan graduated, got a respectable job in real estate, married his college sweetheart, and checked every box on the conventional success list. I lived in a cramped apartment, worked ridiculous hours on my startup, and dated occasionally, but never brought anyone home. They wouldn't have survived the Mitchell family inquisition. My parents' definition of success never evolved: degree, corporate job, marriage, house in the suburbs, grandchildren for them to spoil. Anything deviating from this formula wasn't just different, it was wrong. Disappointing, concerning. So I stopped sharing, stopped explaining. Let them believe what they wanted about my computer hobby while I built something they couldn't possibly understand. Their dismissal became my motivation. Each condescending comment, each comparison to Ethan, added fuel to my determination. I'd prove them wrong. Not with arguments, but with results they couldn't ignore. The day I walked out of MIT throwing away my secure future, as my father called it, was both terrifying and exhilarating. I had $5,000 saved, a laptop, and absolutely no safety net. My parents had made it clear this choice meant I was on my own. Boston's winter that year was brutal, matched only by the cold shoulder from my family. I found a tiny studio apartment in Somerville, 400 square feet, with questionable heating and a shared bathroom down the hall. The rent consumed nearly half my savings in the first month. 3 weeks into my self-imposed exile from academia, I attended a local tech meetup in a cramped coffee shop basement. That's where I met Marcus Reynolds. Tall, with perpetually disheveled dark hair, and the same hungry look I saw in my own mirror, Marcus was pitching an idea that everyone else in the room dismissed as impractical. "The problem is they're thinking about today's limitations," he ranted, as we shared a pitcher of cheap beer afterward. "I'm building for what's possible tomorrow." We clicked instantly, two outsiders with complementary skills and the same disregard for conventional wisdom. By midnight, we'd sketched the foundation of our company on coffee-stained napkins. By the end of the week, we were coding side by side in my tiny apartment. Our first 6 months were a blur of 18-hour workdays, ramen noodles, and the kind of passionate arguments that only happen between people equally committed to perfection. We built 3 different prototypes before landing on the one that would eventually become ClearPath, an AI-driven logistics platform that revolutionized supply chain management. Nobody believed in it. Not the small angel investors we pitched. Not the incubator programs that rejected our applications. Certainly not my family, who still referred to my work as that computer thing Trevor is doing instead of getting a real job. Our first near bankruptcy came 8 months in. Marcus and I were down to our last $600 combined. We couldn't make next month's rent on our tiny shared office, let alone our apartments. That night we sat on my building's rooftop passing a bottle of bottom-shelf whiskey. Maybe they were right, I admitted, the closest I'd come to giving up. Maybe this is just a fantasy. Marcus looked at me with bloodshot eyes. "Your family, you mean? The ones who think success only comes in one flavor?" He took the bottle. "Fuck that. We're close. I can feel it." The next morning, hungover and desperate, we cold emailed the CTO of Horizon Shipping, practically begging for 15 minutes of his time. To our shock, he agreed to a video call. 2 days later, we had our first paying client and enough runway to survive another 3 months. The second brush with failure came a year later. We'd expanded too quickly, hired the wrong people, and nearly lost everything when a critical system failure alienated 2 major clients. Marcus and I worked 72 hours straight, surviving on energy drinks and determination, personally fixing the issue and saving the contracts. Then came the breakthrough. Our algorithm outperformed every competitor in an industry benchmark test by 37%. Suddenly, the investors who'd ignored us were calling daily. The tech blogs that had never heard of us were requesting interviews. We had our pick of venture capital offers. We chose carefully partners who valued our vision over quick returns. The first funding round brought in $3 million. We moved to real offices, hired a proper team, and finally paid ourselves enough to live without counting pennies. Through it all, I told my family nothing. Their picture of me remained frozen, unemployed college dropout playing with computers. Each Thanksgiving and Christmas I'd visit, briefly endure their concerned questions, and return to building my empire in silence. 3 years into our journey, ClearPath was valued at $68 million. We had offices in Boston, Austin, and Seattle. Marcus and I were featured in Forbes 30, under 30. I bought my dream property, 20 acres of lakefront land, an hour outside Boston, and spent a year working with architects to design my perfect home, 6,000 square feet of modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows. Overlooking the water, a state-of-the-art smart home system I'd designed myself, and my own private dock. It was during this time I met Amelia Carter at a charity gala our company sponsored. Unlike the people suddenly interested in the successful entrepreneur Amelia, a dedicated veterinarian who spent her free time at animal shelters, couldn't have cared less about my business achievements. I'm much more interested in who you are when nobody's watching, she told me on our third date, curled up on her couch with her rescue dog snoring between us. Success is what you do. Character is who you are. With Amelia, I found something my parents never understood: acceptance without conditions. She didn't need me to follow a prescribed path to earn her respect. My work fascinated her not because of the money it generated, but because of the passion I poured into it. As our relationship deepened, she asked the inevitable question, "Why haven't you told your family about your success?" I struggled to articulate the complicated emotions. They spent years telling me I was choosing the wrong path, that I'd fail, that I was throwing my life away. I paused. Part of me wants to prove them wrong dramatically, but another part, I don't know if I want people in my life who only value me when I'm successful by their definition. Amelia understood in a way my family never could. Together, we built a life that prioritized meaning over materialism, purpose over status. Our circle of friends consisted of people who knew the real me, not the disappointment my family perceived or the wonder kind the business press occasionally profiled. I kept a deliberately low profile professionally. No flashy cars or watches, no social media flexing. Our company culture reflected this understated approach, focusing on innovation rather than self-promotion. For 5 years, I maintained this double-life successful entrepreneur, building a 9-figure company by day, disappointing son by holiday obligation. The greater my actual success grew, the more satisfaction I took in my family's continued misconception. I was waiting for the perfect moment, the moment they'd realize how completely they'd misjudged me. The embossed invitation to Thanksgiving dinner arrived in late October, my mother's elegant handwriting on the envelope, a formal touch for an increasingly formal relationship. I tossed it on my kitchen counter beside a stack of acquisition offers for ClearPath, the irony not lost on me. I'd skipped the previous year's Thanksgiving, claiming a business emergency. In reality, I'd taken Amelia to Paris, grateful to replace turkey and tension with croissants and connection. My mother's voicemail had been predictably guilt-inducing. Even Ethan made time to come home with his wife. Family should come first, Trevor. This year, the timing felt different. ClearPath had just closed a round of funding that valued the company at $300 million. We were fielding serious acquisition offers. The house I designed was finally complete after 18 months of construction. Something inside me whispered that it was time to end the charade. Amelia found me on our deck, overlooking the lake, staring at the invitation. She wrapped her arms around me from behind, resting her chin on my shoulder. "You're going this year, aren't you?" I sighed. "I'm thinking about it." "Want me to come for moral support?" I turned to face her, taking in her kind eyes and gentle smile. "More than anything, but I think I need to do this alone. It's been building for years, this confrontation. If you're there, I might hold back." She nodded, understanding as always. Sometimes family dynamics need to shift before new people can be integrated. She touched my face. "Just remember, whatever happens, you're coming home to this. To us. Their opinion doesn't change who you are." The week before Thanksgiving, Marcus noticed my distraction during our executive meeting. Afterward, he cornered me in my office. "Spill it, Mitchell. You've been checking out all week." I showed him the invitation. "I'm finally going to tell them. About everything." His eyes widened. The company, the house, all of it. Every last detail. He whistled low. "Man, I'd pay good money to see their faces." He paused, expression turning serious. "Just don't expect miracles, okay? People who've spent years seeing you one way don't change their perspective overnight." The morning of Thanksgiving dawned clear and cold. I chose my outfit carefully, casual enough not to look like I was trying too hard, but quality pieces that subtly signaled success. Dark jeans, a cashmere sweater, handcrafted leather boots. No flashy watch or designer labels, just quiet confidence. The drive to my parents' suburban home took 45 minutes each mile, increasing the tightness in my chest. I rehearsed potential conversations, imagined their reactions, prepared rebuttals to the inevitable questions and criticisms. Their house looked exactly the same colonial style, with fading blue paint, neatly trimmed hedges, and the ceramic pilgrim decorations my mother placed on the porch every November. The familiarity was both comforting and suffocating. Dad answered the door, his hair grayer than I remembered. "Trevor, good to see you, son." His hug was brief, awkward, our relationship distilled into a physical gesture. Inside the house smelled of roasting turkey and Mom's signature apple pie. Family voices drifted from the living room, Uncle Bob's booming laugh, Aunt Margaret's theatrical storytelling. I steeled myself and stepped into the fray. Mom spotted me, immediately crossing the room with arms outstretched. "Trevor, you made it." Her embrace was warmer than Dad's, yet I felt the subtle assessment, her eyes noting my clothes, my haircut, searching for signs of success or failure. "Where's your girlfriend?" she asked, pulling back. "Amelia Wright, I was hoping to finally meet her." "She had prior commitments," I lied smoothly. "Maybe next time." Her disappointment was evident. "Ethan and Diane are in the kitchen. They have such exciting news." The familiar pattern began immediately. Ethan's achievements prioritized before I'd even removed my coat. Some things never changed. In the kitchen, my brother was pontificating about housing market trends to our cousin Jessica, who looked bored to tears. Ethan, tall and conventionally handsome in a Brooks Brothers sweater, embodied everything our parents valued: traditional success, stability, conformity. "Little brother," he called when he saw me raising his wine glass. "The prodigal programmer returns." His wife Diane offered a perfunctory smile, her eyes never quite meeting mine. We'd met 3 times, and she still treated me like someone she might need to give directions to the bathroom. The first hour followed the usual script. Dad talked about his golf game. Mom fussed over the food. Aunt Margaret interrogated everyone about their health. Uncle Bob complained about politics. Cousin Jessica, the only relative I genuinely enjoyed, texted under the table, occasionally catching my eye with a conspiratorial smile. Then the questions began, right on schedule. "So Trevor," Aunt Margaret started predictably, the first to pry, "what are you up to these days? Still doing that computer work?" Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. "Trevor's working on a project. It's all very technical." Her tone conveyed both apology and dismissal. "It's actually a full company now," I said mildly. "We're doing quite well." "That's nice, dear," Mom replied absently, already turning toward Ethan. "Tell everyone your news." My brother straightened chest, puffing like a peacock. "Well, we weren't going to announce until dinner, but since Mom brought it up." He glanced at Diane, who nodded encouragingly. "We just closed on our dream house. 5 bedrooms, 3-car garage, in-ground pool, the works. It's in Briarwood Estates." The room erupted in congratulations. Dad clapped Ethan on the shoulder. "That's my boy, moving up in the world." Mom was practically glowing. "And just in time. They'll need the extra bedrooms soon enough." She winked conspiratorially at Diane, who blushed. I sipped my wine, watching the scene unfold like a play I'd seen too many times. Jessica caught my eye from across the room and rolled hers dramatically. At least someone else recognized the performance for what it was. As we moved to the dining room, I felt a calm determination replace my earlier anxiety. The table was set with Mom's best china, the turkey golden and picture-perfect at the center. We took our assigned seats, the same arrangement since childhood, with Ethan at Dad's right hand and me beside Mom. The stage was set. All I needed was my cue. Mom's Thanksgiving table was a testament to tradition. The same yellowed lace tablecloth that had graced every holiday of my childhood. The mismatched silver candlesticks inherited from Grandma Mitchell. The hand-painted turkey centerpiece I'd made in 3rd grade art class, faithfully preserved and displayed each November despite its lopsided appearance. The food followed an equally predictable pattern: turkey roasted, according to Grandma's recipe, sweet potato casserole with the precise ratio of marshmallows to pecans, cranberry sauce that had to be ocean spray from the can because that's what we've always used. Heaven forbid anyone suggest deviating from the Mitchell Thanksgiving playbook. Dad carved the turkey with surgical precision, while Mom directed traffic. "The white meat platter goes on the right, Barbara." "No, not there where it always goes." The family assembled like actors hitting their marks, a holiday performance rehearsed for decades. I watched silently, suddenly seeing the ritual with outsiders' eyes, the desperate clinging to tradition, the rigid roles, the implicit hierarchy with Ethan and his perfect life at the pinnacle. whined Trevor. Uncle Bob offered, already filling my glass without waiting for an answer. So your brother tells me he's closing deals left and right. Real estate's booming, eh, Ethan? My brother launched into a detailed explanation of his latest professional triumph, something involving a commercial property and a record-breaking commission. The family leaned in, enraptured, as though he were revealing the secrets of the universe instead of basic capitalism. And the house, Aunt Margaret gushed. Tell us more about this house, Ethan. He didn't need further prompting. 4,000 square feet, custom millwork throughout. The previous owners put in a gourmet kitchen last year, Wolf Range, Sub-Zero refrigerator, the works. Diane's already planning a dinner party to show it off. Mom beamed. It's in the best school district, too. Perfect for when they start a family. Which might be sooner than you think, Diane added with practiced modesty, her hand drifting to her still flat stomach. Another explosion of congratulations. More clapping. Mom actually teared up. A grandbaby and a beautiful new home. I couldn't ask for more this Thanksgiving. Dad raised his glass. To Ethan and Diane, moving onward and upward. The toast concluded, all eyes inevitably shifted to me. The contrast, the comparison, the unspoken question. Why couldn't you be more like your brother? Mom cleared her throat, fixing me with the same look she'd given me when I'd brought home C- report cards. So Trevor, what about you? Ethan's building such a beautiful life. When will you finally settle down? Find a nice girl? Buy a proper house, instead of that apartment you rent? The table fell silent. The familiar script called for me to mumble something non-committal, maybe promise to work on it, then change the subject. That's what I'd done for years. Not today. Oh, I already did settle down, I replied, my voice calm and clear. I just didn't invite anyone who doubts me. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. What are you talking about? I mean, I've built a beautiful life too. I just chose not to share it with people who've never believed in me. Her face flushed red. Around the table, conversations halted mid-word, all eyes locked on our exchange like spectators at a tennis match. That's ridiculous, Mom sputtered. Of course we believe in you. We just worry. About my poor life choices I finished for her. About my computer hobby that would never amount to anything, about how I'm not Ethan. Dad attempted to defuse the situation. Now, son, that's not fair. We've always supported. Really, I interrupted something I'd never dared do before. Was it supportive when you told me dropping out of college to start my company was throwing my life away? Or when Mom said my choice was breaking her heart? Aunt Margaret, never one to stay silent, jumped in. What company? You mean that website thing you were tinkering with? I turned to her, allowing myself a small smile. That website thing is now valued at $300 million, Aunt Margaret. We have offices in 3 cities and 142 employees. The silence that followed was absolute. I could practically hear the mental calculations as they processed this information. You're making that up, Ethan finally said, his confident facade cracking slightly. ClearPath Technologies. Look it up. I'm the co-founder and CEO. I pulled out my phone, opened my photo gallery, and slid it across the table. And that proper house Mom's worried about. Here it is. They passed the phone around, faces shifting from disbelief to shock as they scrolled through images of my lakefront property, the modernist architecture, the infinity pool overlooking the water, the private dock with my boat, the custom smart home system that had been featured in Architectural Digest. 6,000 square feet, I added casually. Custom everything. No mortgage, I paid cash. Mom's face had progressed from red to ashen. But, you never said anything. You never asked, I replied simply. You were too busy comparing me to Ethan to notice I was building something significant. Dad examined a photo of my home office with its wall of windows facing the lake. This is really yours. You own this. Every square inch. Along with the 20 acres it sits on. Uncle Bob, opportunistic as ever, suddenly became very interested. 300 million. You say, what exactly does your company do again? We revolutionized supply chain logistics through AI-driven predictive modeling. I smiled at his blank expression. We help companies move stuff more efficiently. And you have a girlfriend. Mom asked, still struggling to process. A serious one. Amelia. We've been together 3 years. She's a veterinarian. 3 years. Her voice rose an octave. Why haven't we met her? I looked her directly in the eye. Because I love her too much to subject her to what I've experienced at this table for the past decade. The words landed like a physical blow. Mom recoiled, tears welling in her eyes. Dad stared at his plate. Even Ethan seemed stunned by my candor. Cousin Jessica, bless her, broke the unbearable tension with a laugh. Well, damn, Trevor, you really buried the lead on this one. Her laughter released the pressure valve. Conversation erupted all at once, questions about my company, my house, my life. Uncle Bob immediately asked if I was looking for investors. Aunt Margaret wanted to know if I'd been in any magazines. Dad kept returning to the photos of my house, zooming in on details with newfound respect. Through it all, I noticed 2 people remaining silent. Mom, who dabbed at her eyes with her napkin, and Ethan, whose perfect smile had vanished completely. The family narrative had shifted irrevocably. The golden child and the disappointment had swapped roles in the span of 5 minutes. I'd imagined this moment for years, expected to feel triumphant. Instead, watching my mother's hurt and my brother's deflation, I felt hollow. Victory tasted nothing like I'd expected. The remainder of dinner proceeded with an awkward energy. The family dynamic suddenly scrambled like pieces on a chessboard after an unexpected move. Uncle Bob dominated the conversation, asking increasingly detailed questions about my company's valuation and growth projections. I answered politely but vaguely, recognizing the naked self-interest behind his sudden attention. You know, I've got some capital I've been looking to invest, he mentioned for the 3rd time as Mom served pumpkin pie. We should talk business before you head out. Our last funding round was significantly oversubscribed, I replied. But I'll keep you in mind for the future. Mom moved mechanically through her hostess duties, her earlier animation replaced by a wounded stillness. She barely touched her food, her eyes occasionally darting to me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Hurt, certainly, but something else, too. Reassessment, perhaps. As plates were cleared, the family dispersed strategically. Uncle Bob cornered Dad for a whispered conversation that involved frequent glances in my direction. Aunt Margaret led Diane to the living room, already planning a visit to see my house. Ethan disappeared to the back porch, uncharacteristically silent. I was loading the dishwasher, a peace offering of sorts, when Mom entered the kitchen clutching a dish towel like a shield. Leave those, she said quietly. We need to talk. I straightened, bracing myself. We stood facing each other across the kitchen island, the heart of a home where I'd never quite fit. Why? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why keep all this secret? Why let us think you were struggling when you were? She gestured, vaguely unable to articulate the scale of my success. Would you have believed me if I'd told you I countered? Or would you have dismissed it as exaggeration? Another example of Trevor's impractical dreams. Her eyes welled with tears. That's not fair. We're your parents. We've always wanted what's best for you. No, I corrected gently. You've wanted what you think is best, what worked for Ethan, what makes sense to you. You never tried to understand what I wanted or what I was building, because you never explained it in a way we could understand. A tear spilled down her cheek. You just expected us to trust that dropping out of college for some computer idea was sensible. Parents worry, Trevor. That's our job. Worry is one thing. Constant comparison is another. I leaned against the counter. Do you know what it's like to hear about Ethan's accomplishments at every family gathering, to have my choices questioned and criticized year after year, to be treated like the family disappointment? She flinched. We never called you a disappointment. You didn't have to say it. It was in every sigh, every change of subject when my work came up, every time you highlighted Ethan's conventional successes as though they were the only kind that mattered. She wiped her eyes, composure cracking. I just don't understand why you couldn't have shared your success with us. We're your family. We would have celebrated with you. Would you? I asked softly. Or would you have found a way to diminish it, to suggest it wasn't real success because it didn't follow the path you approved? Before she could answer, Dad entered, his expression unusually subdued. He placed a hand on Mom's shoulder, united as always in parental solidarity. "Son," he began awkwardly, "I think we owe you an apology. We might not have understood what you were doing, but we've always been proud of you." The words rang hollow. "Have you, Dad? When's the last time you expressed that pride? When have you ever shown interest in my work beyond asking if I'd found a real job yet?" He had the grace to look ashamed. "I didn't understand what you were building. I still don't, not really. Computers were never my strong suit. It wasn't about understanding the technical details. It was about respecting my choices even if they were different from what you would choose." Mom dabbed at her eyes. "We just wanted security for you. A steady job, a traditional career." "I know," I sighed, "but that's not who I am. It never was. And instead of accepting that you spent years trying to make me more like Ethan." As if summoned by his name, my brother appeared in the doorway, bourbon in hand. His earlier polish had faded, revealing something raw beneath. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Alone?" Mom and Dad exchanged glances, then retreated to the living room, leaving us in charged silence. Ethan took a long swallow of his drink. "So all this time while we thought you were floundering, you were building an empire?" His laugh held no humor. "Pretty epic reveal, little brother." I shrugged. "It wasn't planned that way. It just evolved." "Bullshit." He set his glass down hard. "You wanted this moment. You wanted to shock everyone, to one-up me." There was truth in his accusation. Maybe partly, I admitted. Can you blame me after years of being the family cautionary tale while you were the golden example? Something shifted in his expression, defiance giving way to weariness. "You know what's ironic? I've envied you." That caught me off guard. Envied me? Why would you possibly? Because you had the guts to walk away, to build something that's actually yours. He lowered his voice. "You want to know the truth about my perfect life? I hate my job. I'm drowning in debt for that house you saw in the photos. Diane and I fight constantly. But I'm trapped because I've spent my whole life meeting expectations instead of figuring out what I actually want." The confession stunned me. I had no idea. "How could you? We're all playing our assigned roles." He gestured toward the living room. The dutiful son, the rebel, Mom and Dad none the wiser. For the first time in years, I looked at my brother, really looked at him. Beyond the confident facade, I saw fatigue, strain, the weight of carrying perfection. "It's not too late to change," I offered. "To build something different." He shook his head. "Easy for you to say. You're free. I've got a mortgage, a baby on the way." He trailed off, then met my eyes directly. "How did you do it? Find the courage to walk away from what was expected?" The question was so genuine, so vulnerable, that my lingering resentment began to dissolve. I stopped caring about approval I was never going to get. Started building for myself instead of trying to prove something. Our conversation was interrupted by Aunt Margaret bustling into the kitchen, Uncle Bob close behind. "Trevor, dear," she began with newfound warmth, "we were just discussing Thanksgiving next year. Perhaps you could host at that gorgeous house of yours." The transparent pivot from years of condescension to sudden interest made me want to laugh. "I'll consider it, Aunt Margaret. And I've been thinking," Uncle Bob added, "about that investment opportunity. I've got some excellent connections who might be interested in your, what did you call it? Clear path." I smiled politely. "I appreciate the thought." As they continued their awkward attempts at connection, Cousin Jessica appeared, rolling her eyes dramatically behind their backs. She grabbed my arm. "Need some air? I sure do." Gratefully, I followed her to the front porch. The November air was crisp, the neighborhood quiet, except for distant laughter from another family gathering. "That was quite a bomb you dropped in there," she said, settling onto the porch swing. "Epic, honestly." I laughed. "Not how I planned to spend Thanksgiving." "Well, it beats Uncle Bob's annual political rants." She nudged my shoulder. "For what it's worth, I always knew you'd do something amazing. You were always the interesting one." Her simple validation meant more than all of Uncle Bob's sudden interest or Aunt Margaret's transparent social climbing. Thanks, Jess. That means a lot. So this girlfriend Amelia, right? She real or part of your revenge fantasy? Her teasing tone carried no judgment. I pulled out my phone, showed her a picture of Amelia and me on our dock sunset painting the lake behind us. Very real. Too real for this circus. Jessica studied the photo. You look happy. Really happy. I am. Then that's what matters. She handed back the phone. Not the house or the company valuation. Just that. My phone buzzed with a text from Amelia. How's it going? Need extraction. I typed quickly. Bombshell dropped. Family in shock. We'll call later with full report. Love you. Remember who you're coming home to. Hitage came her immediate reply. Looking up from the screen, I made a decision. I think I'm going to head out early. Jessica nodded understanding. Go. I'll run interference. As I gathered my coat and made necessary goodbyes, I felt the weight of years of unmet expectations finally lifting. Mom hugged me tightly at the door, whispering, We have a lot more to talk about. We do, I agreed, but not today. Driving away from the house that had never quite felt like home toward the life I'd built for myself, I realized that the victory I'd imagined wasn't in the shocked expressions or suddenly respectful treatment. It was in finally completely releasing the need for their validation at all. The drive home from my parents' house took on a surreal quality, as though I were traveling between worlds, rather than merely covering geographic distance. Each mile marker separated me further from the identity I'd shed, the family disappointment, the lesser son, and brought me closer to the life I'd built on my own terms. Darkness had fallen by the time I turned onto the private road leading to my property. Motion sensors activated the driveway lights as I approached, illuminating the contemporary lines of the house I'd designed, all glass, steel, and warmth. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the soft glow of the lamps Amelia had programmed to welcome me home. Home. Not just a structure, but a sanctuary where I was fully seen and accepted. Amelia waited in the kitchen, heating leftover lasagna since I'd barely touched my Thanksgiving dinner. She listened without interruption, as I recounted the confrontation, offering nothing but understanding and occasional squeezes of my hand. So she concluded, when I'd finished, the great unveiling finally happened. How do you feel? I considered the question carefully. Lighter. Like I've set down something heavy I didn't realize I was carrying. She nodded. And your family? Shocked, confused, recalibrating. I took a deep breath. My mom wants to talk more, I think. I think maybe there's an opening for something different between us. If that's what you want, she said carefully. I'm not sure what I want yet. I gazed out at the moonlight reflecting off the lake. I don't need their approval anymore. That feels certain. But complete estrangement isn't necessary either. You get to decide the terms now, Amelia reminded me. That's the power of standing in your truth. The next morning I met Marcus for our traditional post-holiday coffee at our favorite Boston cafe. His eyes widened as I recounted the previous day's events. Holy shit, he laughed. I wish I'd been there to see their faces when you dropped the $300 million bomb. It wasn't quite the victory lap I'd imagined, I admitted. Seeing my mom hurt my brother deflated. It felt hollow. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Revenge fantasies usually do. So what now? Back to radio silence. No, I decided in that moment. I think it's time for something new. Maybe a careful reconnection. On my terms. Just be careful, he warned. People don't change overnight. The same family that dismissed you for years might now try to use you. His concern was valid. Uncle Bob's transparent attempt to access investment opportunities had demonstrated exactly that risk. Over the next 2 weeks, I contemplated what healthy boundaries might look like. The first step came unexpectedly when cousin Jessica texted asking if she could see my famous lake house sometime. Unlike the others, her interest felt genuine. She'd always been the family outlier, much like me. I invited her for Sunday brunch. Amelia prepared her specialty Belgian waffles, and we spent hours showing Jessica the property and sharing stories about our lives. No agenda, no comparisons, just authentic connection. This place is incredible, she marveled, as we walked along the private shoreline. But what impresses me most is how at peace you seem here." Her visit became the template for how I wanted family relationships to function, based on genuine interest and mutual respect rather than obligation or judgment. My father was next. He called awkwardly, voice gruff with unaccustomed humility, asking if I'd be willing to show him my company offices to better understand what you've built. The request surprised me. Dad had never shown interest in my professional life before. I agreed cautiously. The following week, I gave him a personal tour of our Boston headquarters, watching his expression shift from polite attention to genuine amazement as he saw the scale of our operation: hundreds of employees, cutting-edge technology, global client displays. I glimpsed something I'd sought for decades: respect. "I had no idea," he admitted, as we sat in my corner office overlooking the harbor. "All these years I pictured you alone in some basement with a computer." "That was year one," I laughed. "We've come a long way." "I was wrong," he said simply, "about your choices, about what success could look like." The admission clearly cost him traditional pride, yielding painfully to new understanding. "Different paths can lead to good places, Dad." After a thoughtful silence, he asked about my actual work, what our software did, how I developed the concept, the challenges we'd overcome. For the first time, he listened without comparing or advising, simply trying to understand. As Christmas approached, I received daily calls from my mother, each conversation a delicate dance of reconciliation. Her initial approach centered on logistics. Would I attend Christmas dinner? Could she finally meet Amelia? Did I have dietary restrictions she should know about? Beneath the practical questions lay deeper ones she struggled to articulate. Could we rebuild what had broken? Was there a place for her in my life now that I no longer needed her approval? The breakthrough came unexpectedly during one such call. "I've been thinking about what you said at Thanksgiving," she began hesitantly. "About comparison. About Ethan." I waited, sensing her gathering courage. "I never meant to make you feel less valued," she continued. I think I focused on Ethan's achievements because they were easy to understand, traditional. I knew how to celebrate a sports trophy or a conventional promotion." Her voice wavered. "Your path scared me because I couldn't envision where it led. I mistook my lack of imagination for your lack of direction." The admission stunned me with its insight. "That actually makes sense, Mom. I'm trying to understand," she said softly. "I want to do better." That conversation marked a turning point. While neither of us pretended that years of hurt could be erased in weeks, we'd established a foundation for something new. My relationship with Ethan proved more complex. His initial resentment at my success and the way it had disrupted his position as the family's golden child created distance. But as December progressed, he reached out with increasing frequency, his questions evolving from superficial to substantive. "I need advice," he admitted during one late-night call. "About my career, my finances, everything really. I'm drowning in a life that looks perfect from the outside." Over several frank conversations, I helped him develop a plan to restructure his debt, rethink his career trajectory, and rebuild his marriage on more honest terms. The role reversal was striking the formerly perfect brother, seeking guidance from the supposed failure. "I never wanted to compete with you," I told him during one such discussion. "I just wanted to be accepted for who I actually am, not measured against who you are." "I get that now," he replied. "More than you know." As Christmas approached, I made a decision that surprised even me. "Let's host the family here," I suggested to Amelia. "All of them." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? That's a lot after everything that's happened." "It feels right," I explained. "Not to show off, but to, I don't know, make space for something new, on our territory with our rules." She smiled. "I love that idea, and I'm finally ready to meet this famous family of yours." The invitations went out not to prove anything, but to offer a genuine opportunity for connection. Jessica accepted immediately. My parents responded with cautious enthusiasm. Even Ethan and Diane agreed, though tension still simmered beneath their response. Uncle Bob and Aunt Margaret predictably were effusive in their acceptance, already planning how to leverage their connection to my success. I included them not out of obligation but as an exercise in setting boundaries, practice in maintaining my center regardless of others' agendas. Preparing for Christmas became a joyful project. Amelia and I decorated our home with warmth rather than ostentation. A massive tree in the great room overlooking the lake, simple white lights tracing the deck railings, homemade wreaths rather than designer displays. The foundation was laid for a new chapter, not erasing the past, but building something healthier atop it. Standing on our dock the night before Christmas Eve watching ice crystals form along the shoreline, I realized I'd finally achieved something more valuable than professional success or material wealth. I'd found freedom from the weight of others' expectations, and with it the space to define family on my own terms. The aftermath of the Thanksgiving revelation transformed my relationship with my family in ways I never anticipated. While the initial confrontation had been cathartic, the real work began in the quieter moments that followed the uncomfortable conversations, the tentative reconnections, the establishment of new boundaries. January brought renewed focus on my personal healing. At Amelia's gentle insistence, I finally began therapy with Dr. Harmon, a specialist in family dynamics. Our weekly sessions became sacred space to unpack decades of comparison, trauma, achievement pressure, and the complex emotions surrounding my family's sudden respect after years of dismissal. The validation you sought for so long finally arrived, Dr. Harmon observed during one particularly intense session, yet it doesn't feel as satisfying as you imagined. Why do you think that is? I considered the question carefully, because it's based on what I achieved, not who I am. They're impressed by the company valuation and the house, not my character or vision. And what would meaningful validation look like? The question lingered with me for days. Eventually, I realized that true validation could only come from within, from living authentically according to my own values, rather than seeking external approval. This insight transformed my approach to family relationships. Instead of either avoiding connection as I had for years or desperately seeking approval as I had in childhood, I began engaging from a place of self-assurance. I could love my family without needing them to fully understand me. I could maintain boundaries without complete estrangement. My relationship with Amelia deepened through this period of personal growth. Her unwavering support never veered into codependence. She remained my partner, not my therapist, maintaining her own full life and identity. I'm thinking about proposing, I told Marcus during a rare weekend fishing trip in February. Not because it's expected or the next step, but because I can't imagine building my life with anyone else. He grinned. About time. Amelia's the best thing that ever happened to you, including our $300 million company. I know, I agreed. She loved me when I had nothing but ambition and a crappy apartment. She celebrates my success without being impressed by it. By early spring, plans for the proposal were underway. I designed a custom ring with a local jeweler, understated yet unique like Amelia herself. The proposal would happen on our dock at sunset, simple and intimate, rather than flashy or public, true to us. Parallel to my personal evolution, family relationships continued their careful reconstruction. Mom and I established a weekly phone call Sunday evenings, just the two of us gradually rebuilding trust through consistent, honest communication. I've been reading about tech startups, she mentioned during one such call, trying to understand your world better. The effort touched me deeply. That means a lot, Mom. I should have done it years ago, she acknowledged. Instead of trying to make your path look more like what I understood, Dad took a different approach to reconciliation, focusing on tangible connection rather than emotional processing. He began visiting monthly, genuinely interested in my work and home. During these visits, he'd often bring small offerings from my childhood baseball cards I'd collected, my first computer programming book, photographs I'd forgotten existed. Found this in the attic, he said during one visit, handing me a dusty certificate. Your science fair award from 6th grade. First place for that computer program that predicted weather patterns. I stared at the faded paper. You kept this? Kept everything, he admitted gruffly. Just didn't know how to show I was proud even when I didn't understand what you were doing. These moments of connection, imperfect but sincere, gradually rebuilt the foundation of family, not the idealized version I'd longed for as a child, but something real and sustainable. My relationship with Ethan evolved most dramatically. Our childhood competition transformed into a genuine brotherhood as he embarked on his own journey of authenticity. With my encouragement, he began therapy, confronted his unsustainable financial situation, and had honest conversations with Diane about their relationship. The funny thing is, he confided during a rare brothers-only dinner Diane's relieved. She never wanted the huge house or perfect family pressure either. We've been performing for each other all these years. I helped him develop a financial plan to address his mounting debt, even offering a private loan to consolidate his highest interest obligations, not from obligation, but from genuine care for his well-being. "I don't want your charity," he protested initially. "It's not charity," I assured him. "It's family. The real kind where we support each other's authentic happiness instead of competing for some arbitrary standard of success." As spring blossomed into early summer, preparations for our Christmas-promised family gathering at our home finally materialized. Unlike the impromptu post-Thanksgiving invitations, this event would be intentional, a conscious choice to welcome family into our space on terms that honored both our boundaries and our desire for connection. Amelia, now wearing the engagement ring I'd given her during a perfect sunset proposal in April, threw herself into planning with characteristic warmth and authenticity. "Nothing formal," she insisted. "No showing off. Just good food, comfortable spaces for conversation, and absolute permission to be ourselves." The weekend arrived with perfect June weather, sunshine sparkling on the lake, gentle breezes carrying the scent of newly bloomed flowers. Family members arrived one by one, their reactions to our home varying from Jessica's genuine delight to Uncle Bob's poorly concealed calculation of property values. What struck me most was how differently I experienced their presence compared to family gatherings past. Where once I'd felt defensive, inadequate, or invisible, I now felt grounded in my own worth, able to engage without seeking validation or fearing judgment. Mom wandered our property with tears in her eyes, not from disappointment, but from the belated recognition of her son's full identity. "It's beautiful, Trevor. Not because it's expensive, but because it's so clearly you." Dad bonded with Amelia over their shared love of fishing, spending hours on the dock trading stories and techniques. By evening, they were conspiring to surprise me with a deep-sea fishing trip for my upcoming birthday. Even Ethan, whose wife was now visibly pregnant, seemed to relax into a version of himself I'd rarely seen, laughing freely, asking questions without agenda, connecting as a brother rather than a competitor. After dinner, as sunset painted the sky in impossible colors, we gathered on the deck with wine and conversation. The moment felt significant, not an ending but a new beginning based on authenticity rather than expectation. "I've been thinking about what I've learned through all this," I said, as conversation naturally lulled. "About family, about success, about what actually matters." All eyes turned to me, attentive, in a way they never had been during family gatherings past. I spent years believing I needed to prove my worth, to show that my unconventional choices were valid through financial success or material possessions. But that was never the point. I reached for Amelia's hand, drawing strength from her steady presence. True success isn't measured in dollars or square footage. It's found in the freedom to build an authentic life, to surround yourself with people who see and value your real self, not some performance of success. To create something meaningful, whether that's a company or a relationship or simply a life that reflects your actual values. The words weren't rehearsed, but flowed from hard-won wisdom. I realize now that the most valuable thing we can offer each other as family isn't approval or even understanding. It's the space to be authentically ourselves, different as those selves might be, and to love each other through that difference rather than despite it. As darkness settled over the lake and conversation continued late into the night, I recognized the profound truth that had emerged from years of family struggle. We are not defined by others' perceptions, expectations, or validations. Our worth exists, independent of external judgment. True freedom comes not from proving critics wrong, but from releasing the need for their approval altogether. From building a life authentic to your own values rather than conforming to others' definitions of success. That journey from seeking validation to claiming authentic selfhood is perhaps life's most important work. And though the path might be painful, the destination offers a peace that no external achievement could ever provide. What about you? Have you ever felt pressured to follow someone else's definition of success, or found the courage to create your own path despite others' doubts? Drop a comment below and share your experience. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. There's so much more to share about finding freedom through authenticity. Thank you for listening. And remember, the most powerful validation is the kind you give yourself when you honor your own truth.